to share. But the thing we'll tell you is that it was all a lie, that the best thing you have learned, you haven't learned it yet because that's why you're here. You are going to learn what we think is the best thing today. And I know that we'll have a good conversation today on differentiation and not just differentiation and what differentiation looks like, but how technology can support differentiation. You want to tell them who you are?
I'm Shaelynn Farnsworth, and I'm from Iowa. I see a hawk in the background. Go Hawks. Any other Iowans in the audience? Yes. I work for a region in the state, and so I support districts in literacy, technology, school improvement, initiative implementation. But literacy is my jam, so I talk a lot about that, and a lot of these examples are directly related to literacy.
If literacy is your jam, what's your jelly?
Ooh.
Technology? I don't
That's
know.
right.
That was a poor attempt at a joke. So I'm Steven Anderson, and I'm not funny. I am a former educator, teacher, classroom teacher. I taught middle school math and science for 13 years, eventually left the classroom, went to go be director of instructional technology for a very large district in North Carolina, where I'm from. Anybody from North Carolina? Where are you from? So Winston-Salem, so just north of there. So I have the opportunity to go around to lots of different schools and districts all over the world and talk to a lot of what the work I've been doing lately has been on administrative leadership and working with leaders to help them better understand the use of technology when they walk into the classroom, what they should see. Not just, hey, kids are behind devices, everything must be awesome. What they should actually be looking for. So we'll tease out some of that as we go through today. So let's get started. So what we want you to do is we want you to have a conversation about differentiation. Now, there are some textbook definitions of differentiation. There are some made-up definitions of differentiations, kind of like blended learning. There is so many things out there, it kind of gets convoluted. So what we want you to do is we want you to take those same teams and talk about differentiation. Then we want you to do something else. We're going to have you go to this link, which is a Flipgrid. Did y'all know Microsoft bought Flipgrid? I don't know if y'all heard of that, which is awesome. So we want you to go to this Flipgrid, and as a group, nominate one person, do it as a group, however you want to do it, 30 seconds, record your definition of differentiation. You have 3 minutes to do this.
And again, Stephen and I thought this would be a great way, yes, success, to not only share the exciting news. How many people have already used Flipgrid before? Yes. How many people is this a new tool for? Okay, great. And so the fantastic thing was Flipgrid, which began in Minnesota, was a fabulous platform that allowed teachers and students to share small video clips. And just how things are, free is not always sustainable. And so a few months ago, a year ago, they had to put a price for premium. So for the free one, you received one free grid and you could do topics, that sort of thing. So when I went and worked with staff on small group instruction, I would have the teachers reflect in a Flipgrid just to show them how to use it. Well, along comes Microsoft and says, we love this tool. We want to incorporate it into our, is it 365? Did Mike say? And we're going to give it back to all educators free. So that's fabulous. I love it. And you know what they did on top of it? If you recently purchased it, we're going to give you back your money too. And so I know it. I love it.
And you think about the entry point on this is really low for not just adults, but for kids too. Press a green button, count down, record, save, snap a picture, done. And now we're gonna play this one here in a second. They've got reactions. Kids can add replies to other replies, and it can become this growing conversation. And we're going to dive into this a little bit later, but when we're talking about things like interest inventory, or we're trying to differentiate students' content or their assessment, having multiple modes and methods to be able to do that is really important, but the technology can't be invasive. And this is one of those less invasive ways to utilize technology that's ubiquitous across any platform. You can do this from any device. I see 300 different devices in the room. You can do it from anywhere, any device, anytime. At that point, the technology fades in the background. because it's so easy to just press a button, record, and share. Let's watch this one.
Okay, the definition of differentiation is addressing all the different learnings in the learning.
Yes, I agree with that.
Let's give them a round of applause for that. Yeah. The nice thing is now that Microsoft has made this free, I no longer am limited to one grid. And so this will be accessible by you all if you use that code. So you can access this at any time. You could add one. You could use it as an example, maybe share it with somebody who you think might use it in the classroom. So you'll always have access to this if you have that code, and it was case sensitive.
Anybody heard of Caroline Tomlinson? I'm sure if you've ever been through a basic education course, you've read Caroline Tomlinson, pretty much the go-to guru for differentiation. But she says whenever a teacher reaches out to an individual or small group to vary his or her teaching in order to create the best learning experience possible, that teacher is differentiating instruction. And it's that create the best learning experience possible is the key, is that every student deserves differentiation. Every student. It's not just for students who are accelerated in their learning or who may be behind in their learning or who have a special need. Differentiation can benefit every single student. And really, students who have teachers who differentiate grow and learn faster than kids in classrooms where teachers don't. And it's so easy to use. The differentiation has kind of been this convoluted thing where it seems impossible or hard to do because, oh, I have to teach every individual student now and figure out what every individual student does and needs. And it doesn't have to be that complex. And especially when we layer in technology, and we're not talking about specific tools or apps. We will do some of that, but really the tech fades to the background, and it's what we're doing with it in order to differentiate. So differentiation classroom, you're going to get all this, but in a differentiated classroom, the teacher is really ultimately trying to meet the learning needs of every single student. That teacher, he or she, understands what that student needs, where they are in their learning, where they need to go, and how that teacher can respond through their teaching to help that student grow. Differentiation, how can it work?
That's right. So kind of grounded in Tomlinson's work, one thing that we noticed is Edtech. There's so many different resources that help not only streamline the process, but offer multiple opportunities. And that's kind of where we've blended it together. We are going to go through 4 different components. We normally do this as like a 2-hour workshop, but like Steven said, you will get this sway at the end, and so you can have it and dig through some of the resources and that sort of thing. We're going to talk about assessment first, content, process, and products. And so those larger components of how you can differentiate in the classroom and fusing it with effective technology integration.
So let's look at assessment, so differentiation of assessment. And what we're really focused on with assessment is a formative assessment, because that's the piece of the learning puzzle that can really have the greatest impact in a differentiated classroom. It's also the easiest to do, to meet the needs of every student by formatively assessing them. You can more easily meet the needs of all those students without having to do anything utterly complex.
That's right. And so as I told you at the beginning, I'm a literacy specialist in Iowa. I work with so many incredible, smart people, and our data guru shared this, and he said, Shaelynn, don't get upside down in the data pyramid. He said, oftentimes we focus on the very top tier, which is the summative or high stakes tests. We need to focus on the bottom, he said, and that is the formative assessment, because that's where you see the largest student achievement gains. If you're focusing on the summative, you're not going to have as much growth. The bottom, formative assessment, knowing where your kids are at, that's where you need to focus. And we see this a lot, especially in elementary. They take a long time to get to know their students, but also understand, especially in the literacy world, those behaviors, those reading and writing behaviors, to see where they are in their learning and understand what their needs are, what they're on the cusp of grasping. And so I really like this pyramid because it, again, focuses the attention on what teachers do day to day formatively.
And it makes sense. If you're only doing a test once a year and that's the only time you understand where students are in their learning, there's no time to respond to that. So it makes sense that if we're doing it consistently, and that's the key, consistently, daily, 2-3 times every lesson to understand where students are in their learning, then the top one doesn't become high stakes anymore. It just becomes something else that they have to do.
That's right, and we also like to consider this not only the teacher's GPS, but also the learner's GPS. Where are they at, where are they headed, and it kind of gauges that. Agree that you can use it multiple times a day, multiple times in a lesson. It doesn't always have to include technology. There's some great kinesthetic formative assessment tips that I've learned from some elementary teachers. But there are different ways you can formatively collect data and understand where your students are at through Edtech.
So some benefits of using technology, as Shaelynn said, you don't have to we could do a formative assessment right now by giving you all a task and then us coming around to a couple individuals and saying, hey, tell us your definition of differentiation, or tell us, do really quickly, do this math problem for me, 1 time, 2 times. Formative assessment is not a 10-question quiz, 30-question quiz, homework, 30-question homework. It's a 1 or 2 or 3 question idea of, hey, I've got enough data to now know this student's got this information or they didn't get it. And even waiting to the end of the lesson is too long, because there's individual concepts that are covered in lessons, as we know, that we need to have students understand. And so this is where technology can play a benefit, is that now we can easily use tools to be able to say, okay, I'm going to ask you this quick question. I'm going to have you do this quick activity that takes 30 seconds to do, like a Flipgrid. Hey, record a 30-second Flipgrid, and then during my period, I'm going to be able to watch them all, and I'm going to know, hey, here's what I need to do tomorrow. So the technology makes it very easier, but it also makes it available so that I can study it over time. And that's the key component of formative assessment that seems to be missed. Formative assessment is great. There are tons of tools on the trade floor that do formative assessment. What they don't talk about is why formative assessment is a long-term instructional strategy. You have to gather the data, and then you have to analyze the data over time. You can't just take that snapshot and say, okay, this is what I need to do to respond to my teaching. That's only half of it. Now I can collect that data over a longer period of time and say, wow, I've seen a rise in what Johnny knows, but when we get to these particular concepts that were similar to the ones we did a month ago, he's still not there. And so I wouldn't know that if I'm not going back and I'm looking at the data. So that's where technology becomes the benefit.
So take a moment to discuss with those people around you again. What are some things that you currently use in the EdTech world for formative assessment? Or if you support teachers like I do, what do you see teachers using EdTech-wise to gather formative assessment data in the classroom?
30 seconds.
Go ahead.
All right, what are some EdTech tools you've seen teachers use?
Shout it out.
Kahoot, Nearpod, Flipgrid, Quizzes, Forms,
Pear Deck.
Onenote, Pear Deck, Padlet. You see, at this point, it doesn't matter. Formative assessment comes in multiple different forms. It's not one thing or the other. When a teacher gets married to one type of tool, what's going to happen, because it happens all the time, when that tool fades away?
Today's Meet.
Today's Meet is a great example of that. The freak out around Today's Meet, which if you don't know what it was, it's a back channeling tool. It's a chat tool that's been around for almost 10 years. It was run by one guy who supported it for 10 years, and he had to shut it down because he couldn't afford to do it anymore. And so people freaked out. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? They forgot the reason why they were using it in the classroom. If you remember the reason, tool doesn't matter. We've heard 30 different things in here. We're going to show you just a handful. The point is to remember, I'm doing formative assessment as a differentiation because I want to understand where my learners are, where they are in their learning, where they need to go, and where I need to go in my teaching.
I love this quote because it focuses on when evidence suggests that the learning has not occurred, the instruction needs to change, not the student. And so how can I use that formative assessment and change my instruction and not throw it back, blame to the student? So a few of our favorite ones, Pull Everywhere. How many people have heard of Pull Everywhere? It's an oldie but a goodie. Did you know now, and we're not going to do this, but they have an image. So you could drop in an image and then you can drop in pins. So when I do this with educators, I have them let me know where they were born or how many years they've been in the field. I saw an FFA teacher, and for those big city folks that don't know, he was doing animal science. He had a picture of a cow and you had to name your cut of steak. Drop your pin, and when he said a specific type of meat cut on the cow to see where it was located. So lots of different things. If you haven't visited it, lately, there's lots of great updates for Pull Everywhere.
Hey, we already talked about this one, Flipgrid. So Flipgrid is another one of those, not just being able to have students respond to a prompt to understand where they are. It can be students responding to students. It can be a reflective activity. And then don't forget, differentiation doesn't just belong in the classroom. It belongs in the PD room too. And so Flipgrid is a great tool for teachers. And we were having a good conversation in the front about why teachers hate to see themselves on video. But the teachers who use reflective practice in their teaching have students who grow faster, and they do it at a much higher pace. So when we use that reflective practice, so it's not just a technique for the classroom, but it is for educators as well. Forms is another good one. And, the Microsoft Forms is a really cool tool of being able to not just do the standard, ABC, true, false, all those things, being able to insert video and those sorts of things, but then being able to look at things like how long did it take a student to answer this question, or how long did it take for them to do this assessment. So if I can see that, these are questions that should be pretty easily answered, and Johnny's really struggling with that to try and get through them, then I know that that's something I need to go back on. That's a valuable piece of data you can't get from a lot of these tools. So this Asabel quote is really interesting, but to point out here, the most important single factor influencing learning is what the learner already knows. You ascertain that, and then you teach them. And the only way you can do that is by formative assessment. That's the only way you can know what a student understands and knows.
Next one, differentiation of content. Before we begin this one, go ahead and talk for another 30 seconds to the people around you. How do you see teachers differentiating the content they deliver to students currently in the classroom? Go ahead, 30 seconds.
So what are some ways you've seen teachers differentiate content? What are some ways you've seen teachers differentiate content? It doesn't have to be EdTech. We're not even focused on EdTech, really. What are some ways you've seen teachers differentiate content? Just content in general. Small group. Mm-hmm. What else?
Flex time.
Flex time.
Audio
options. Videos. Yeah.
Multiple languages.
So this is another one that is, it seems a little daunting, but actually is easier than teachers think. That you think, oh, well, I've got students who, like my daughter, who is a rising fourth grader, is reading at almost a seventh grade level. And I'm not saying that to brag, well, I am, but I'm not saying that to brag. But in her classroom, her third grade teacher was struggling to figure out, okay, I've got to find books, because she's at an elementary school, we're trying to find her middle school books, but then she also has kids in her class who are almost a year behind in their reading. So how am I supposed to teach them the same types of content through social studies and science, but now I've got this huge, wide gap of kids of where they are in their abilities. So the teacher in the differentiated classroom is more in touch with what that student, with their students, and their approach is an art rather than just going through the motions. But when a teacher understands what their students need, that really is a true art form. So there's two givens I think we can all agree on with teaching and education in general. One, that content comes in the forms of standards. That's the world we live in. That's the box we live in. I can't think of an area that we teach students that doesn't have some sort of set of standards attached to it. That's a given. We can't change that. Two, students are always going to vary as learners. No two students are ever going to learn the same. Those are two things that are going to be universal across teaching. What the differentiated teacher believes is that not every kid is going to get to the same place at the same time in the same way. They're going to do it differently. The differentiated teacher holds every single student to high standards. Those standards might be different. So for Reagan, my rising fourth grader, she might be held to a much different standard than a student who is a struggling reader. But they're going to be equally held to a high standard based on where they are in their understanding. Success stems from hard work. They are students of their students. They diagnose and understand of who their students are. Well, that comes from formative assessment. That comes from actually talking to kids about who they are and what they like and what their passion areas are. We heard some ignites earlier this week from a couple students, and every single student got on that stage and asked every teacher in that room to help them discover their passion and let their passion shine in their classroom. And when kids are telling rooms of teachers that, then we need to start listening. And that's what a teacher who's a student of their students does. And then they embody common sense. This stuff is very common sense. So there's two areas we can look at with with differentiation of content. So readiness differentiation and interest differentiation. Readiness is the actual differentiation of content, understanding that there are different levels and how are we going to meet the levels and needs of those students. And then interest differentiation. Students, obviously, again, they have those passion areas. How can we help meet their needs through their passion areas, through interest? So interest inventories. You can go to Google right now and search for interest inventories. There are tons and tons and tons and tons of interest inventories out there. It really doesn't matter which one you use. The point is to see what kids are interested in. And not just, hey, at the beginning of the year, tell me all the things you are interested in. I like baseball, I like Pokemon, I like Fortnite, whatever it is.
Fortnite.
I know, I just learned about this. Have you heard about this? Fortnite? Whatever.
Okay.
So it's going into the content too. So starting a lesson by asking students, what do they already know about a topic? What are they interested in a topic? Maybe they don't know anything, but maybe they've heard something about it, and maybe they want to know something else that maybe they want to dispel a myth, or, hey, I heard this, is that true, or whatever it is. Getting them to think about what they already know about a topic, those activating strategies, can tell a teacher a lot about where their students are and what that teacher needs to do in their teaching. Padlet is another great way to do that. It's just a virtual sticky note board if you never heard of it. Flipgrid could be used for this. Again, the point isn't the tool. The point is that the tool can be used to harvest and archive that data. It's what we're going to do with it as we go through time. So, understanding learners.
Understanding learners, and this is where you differentiate content based on student needs. The easiest way that I explain this to teachers is you teach the student, not the content. And so if I want to grow the love of reading, I'm going to teach them strategies and skills they can use now and for whenever they're reading, no matter what they're reading. And so that kind of hits home with people. Different ways you can do this. First, I personally, as you know, love the complete comprehensive set of the learning tools because I think it especially offers for our struggling readers a comprehensive way to digest material. Not only can you use the Immersive Reader, but then you can have it read to you. You can annotate if you have them use Bing, and I would definitely share this with students. You can annotate on the website itself and send it right to Onenote. So it's comprehensive in that it supports our learners access content, especially our struggling learners, right from the very beginning to accessing it, but then remembering it and then sending it somewhere that they can digest later. And bring it back up for understanding. So it's fantastic if you're unfamiliar with the learning tools. Again, I share that especially with all my reading strategists and reading interventionists because it's so important to give kids those skills to be independent.
But Shaelynn, my district doesn't have any money and we don't use Microsoft. What am I supposed to do?
It's in the cloud now, so you can actually access it right from your tab.
For how much?
Your browser. For free.
Yay!
Yay, for everyone. And again, I know Steven and I are not Microsoft experts. We're not the MIE experts, although I'm working on it. But as a literacy person, this is definitely something I share with my teachers because it is so comprehensive. Another one that you can use for free is Newsela. Anybody ever heard of Newsela? So Newsela is a high-interest nonfiction website that allows you to access articles, and then through a little slider on the side, it changes the reading level. It doesn't change the photos, it just changes the words. And they have everything from current events to paired text sets. They have vocabulary built in and comprehension questions. There's tons of websites out there that offer this. Newsela, we're kind of partial to them because we've seen them grow. And I think when I first stumbled across Newsela, they said, you won't find Britney Spears here. It's high interest nonfiction for kids, and they just keep growing and building on what they offer teachers.
But even things like topics that are hard to talk to students about, like, Parkland, terrible tragedy that happened at Parkland. You have kids coming to school the next day and they're asking these questions. How as a teacher do you talk about it? They have content readily available that's at those levels for students and guiding questions for teachers to use. So even things that are really hard to teach and talk about, they do a really amazing job of providing that content as well.
Another one that I don't know if you've heard of before, I personally have, is Open Up Resources. So there's a large movement called OERs, Open Educational Resources, which means that they're free and you can use them in the classroom. This is from Open Up Resources. Has anybody heard of that? Open Up Resources. And I remember hearing the buzz, I think this was maybe last year in Iowa. A couple districts asked me about it. So we actually set up time to meet with them when they were just emerging, because I first wanted to hear if they were truly OER. And then secondly, I wanted to know about their writing program, because that's, like I said, I think writing is lacking in a lot of places. And I was blown away what they delivered, not only me, but also my literacy colleagues. Fast forward to when we were talking to Mike, right now they're in the process of taking these curriculums, full set curriculums, and putting them into Onenote class notebooks. And so imagine that they have curriculum for literacy and for mathematics, and they just keep expanding, but now it's going to be streamlined right into the Microsoft OneNote class notebook, where you can differentiate for kids. It's free. You teach the student, not the content, and then put it out virtually. It's fabulous. I'm so excited about this one.
Another one, everybody heard of CK12? These flex books, these are amazing. So these are elementary through 12 and even beyond. They've got pretty much every course area you can think of. These are digital textbooks that are completely free and open source. And they are very, very good. They would rival anything, probably way better than anything you probably have in your building now. But they are completely editable. You can move topics around, you can change the orders, they come with built-in assessments, but they also know that there are lots of other great resources out there. So again, they're editable, so you can pull in your own videos or your own simulations. Like I was a science teacher, I could pull in my science simulations into them, bundle it up, and then share it virtually with a student either via a link, or you can download it so that they can do it offline. So the state of Utah has adopted these as their textbooks. So these are elementary all the way up through AP Calculus and AP Biology and all those things. So there's a lot that's there, but again, free, completely editable. Process, let's move on to process.
I forgot to say this, but both CK12 and also Open Up Resources, they are both aligned to the Common Core standards. So if that's something that you use in your districts, they are definitely aligned. Differentiation of process, this is what the student uses to make sense of the material. How do they understand what's being taught? How do you differentiate that? Learning profiles, so this is different than are they ready for the material? What are they on the cusp of learning? This deals with kind of their interests, but also it deals with learning styles. Now, I know that's kind of a taboo topic, and there's people out there that argue there's not learning styles, but I think we can all agree that multiple modes in which people access information is best, because sometimes we like things that are read, sometimes we like visuals, sometimes we like audio. Technology has provided us access to do this in an easy way. It results in, without this differentiation in process, basically when you look through this, it talks about one size fitting all, starting from the beginning. Advanced students are expected to do more, grouping students, and what I see happening in a lot of districts is they have a division between the students that are excelling and those that are struggling. And what has really happened is it keeps the remedial classes as remedial students, and they never get out of that. So while there's a little bit of research that says, yes, if you group the high flyers together, they grow, there's no research that supports that keeping kids who struggle together, that they will excel. Teachers slow down, students don't learn from each other, so
remember that that
huge.
Differentiated teacher keeps every kid to a high level, and if you're going to pull them out and slow down, may not be, and research shows, is not the best thing for them.
And so the process one is very difficult for teachers. We think that it can be accomplished easier and streamlined through EdTech. The first one is Gamified Learning, and Steven's all about this one, so I'm going to let him take this.
Y'all ever heard of Minecraft? Did you know that it's owned by Microsoft?
I did not know that.
So there's a lot of really cool ways that there's positives and negatives to gamified learning. I'm still one of those that's on the fence whether or not it's valuable or not. I can see the benefit. I can see, the ability to try again and the ability to persevere in learning those kinds of techniques. Breakout EDU is one of my favorites that's up here because of the nature of the collaboration that the students have to go through. But Breakout, again, is another one of those things that works well for adults. Classcraft is another good one, similar to World of Warcraft, except this is like nicer, classroom friendly, that has students working in a fantasy world in a collaborative environment as well. And even for students like ELL students or second language learners, something like Duolingo is a gamified language learning platform. So it is awesome. It's really cool. And so even not for students who may be ELL, or even it could be for students who are taking a foreign language and want to move faster than the teacher's going. It could be a way to use that as well.
I think you should tell your story about Teams.
So Teams is, I love Microsoft Teams. I haven't used it as much as I should, but I was recently in a district in North Carolina, Onslow County, and the stuff that Onslow is doing with Teams is really incredible. Of the kids, I went into a classroom where they had a conference for their teachers, and it was all student-led. So the students were delivering these sessions, and I went into this session on Sway in the 4th grade classroom. And these were kids who were showing the teachers how to design sways and how the teachers could use Sway in their classroom. And one of the teachers asked the students about, well, how are you working on this outside of school? You can't possibly have enough time. They're like, oh, we just go into Teams, we chat, and we share, and we do this, and we do that. And it creates that environment that is in that one platform. So all they have to do is they go to one place. We were walking over here, and I was getting a Facebook message and a tweet and an email. I was like, I wish I could have one place that all of this stuff went. That's Teams in the O365 environment, that all this stuff feeds into here and allows students to work together in multiple different ways and different channels to be able to collaborate in that way. And again, it's multi-platform, doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if every kid is something different or they go home and they have a different device. Assistive, this is one of your areas.
Again, this is one of my areas of expertise, especially because of the reading and writing connection. There's a wonderful Microsoft accessibility site that you can dig around for hours in. This is a fabulous resource to not only look for yourself, but also to give any teachers that support those students in the classroom access to this, just the knowledge that it's out there. So Assistive Tech, that's kind of on the rise. We see it a lot at conferences, but also in the Twitter sphere. And so Microsoft has some of those available. Now this is coming out soon, or it could be out now. Mike was wondering if somebody would realize it popped up in their OneNote, but he hadn't seen it yet. You can actually translate in OneNote if you're on the Windows 10 app. So you could have a book in, and you need to support some of your EL students, English learner students in the classroom. Flip that translation switch and it changes it all too. This is an example of French.
It's not just the text, it's the text, the syllables, the picture dictionary, the reading, the whole thing gets translated, and then you can
change it with Immersive Reader.
Because you can change it with Immersive Reader, and
right.
Then you can have we talked about, the picture dictionary can be in one language while the text on the page is in another. So especially for for ELL students who their problem is comprehension, not word call. We can word call really well, but it's comprehension. And the reason for that is they get to words they don't know and they have to stop, look it up, figure out what it is, and then they've forgotten what they read. And so picture dictionary in that native language can be a huge benefit. And so all that's there now.
So it's there now, and it just came out. So check it out. The other one that's really cool that they announced yesterday on the floor, and I cannot wait for this, is Immersive Reader in VR. And so has anybody had a chance to stop by and see that yet? Yeah?
It's pretty cool.
It's cool. So although I do buy into gamified because that happened in my own classroom, VR, I'm still kind of questioning. I wonder sometimes if there is a difference between engagement and effectiveness, and I see a lot of engaging things, but I don't know if it's typically effective, and Steven will get into that later. This Immersive Reader for VR is going to be awesome. So
so they took Immersive Reader and put it into a VR headset. And,
Mike's wearing it
and
right there.
it basically, yeah, like Mike is wearing there. And you can go and try it, and it's a immersive reader in VR, so the words are scrolling down the page and reading. You can control all the same controls that are in there. But when you think about it, VR is an immersive environment, so if you have students who struggle with sensory issues, that causes other learning that they may be struggling with. So putting them in that environment may be a benefit. There's some other they're toying with some other things.
A class that I teach for dyslexia. Because you can do it by syllables, you can do it by label the parts of speech. You can have it read aloud. And you can do one-line focused or word focused. And so I don't claim that I'm an expert in dyslexia. I work with a lot of smart people, and that I've had to learn a lot about it. And I can see the benefits of using something like an immersive reader for those readers that struggle, or maybe you have a student in your classroom that doesn't track well. Here is a fantastic option where you're completely immersed. You can do it by word, line, chunks of paragraphs. You can separate it into syllables. So when he told us about that, I got goosebumps.
So we have 9 minutes left.
9 minutes left. Okay, quickly. This is a collection of other resources I have crowdsourced from people. They're not all specific to Microsoft, but there's lots of great resources out there.
But even don't forget the accessibility tools you have on devices. We give kids these devices. The first thing we can teach them is, hey, how do you change the text size? How do you change the screen, the background colors, or inverting colors? Like those simple things that are built into every single device. Teaching kids just that to every kid, even if they use it or they don't, it could benefit everybody. Critically, the centers. We're going to skip through this. So centers,
Okay.
So in OneNote.
Yep, so when you're talking about process, again, one way to streamline it with EdTech would be creating groups or centers for kids to go around. And that's where I thought, oh, that'd be cool to have the immersive reader in there too, with a VR headset. There's lots of great OneNote class notebooks that are already available, but also you can create one for grouping kids with similar needs. This is another thing that you could make not only in OneNote, but you could make it on any sort of HyperDoc. Somebody said HyperDoc in the back, or something interactive platform. This is kind of like a WebQuest on steroids. So you'll see at the top it says learn. When students are learning something, there's multiple options for them to learn about the periodic table.
So they might have to pick two. And so I've got an option to read an article, here's an interactive, here's a music video. I pick two. I pick the ones that are gonna help me based on how I learn best. And then digging a little bit deeper, 3 more options. And then now they have to apply that, and they have 3 different ways to apply what they've learned, and they can always go back, and maybe the first one they did wasn't effective enough or beneficial for their learning, so they can go back. It provides them that choice, but it's contained choice. It's choice where it's not just a free-for-all, hey, go figure out everything you know about the periodic table. It's here are 3 resources that you can use to learn about this. You pick 2. And the choice is something that's really super important when it comes to technology especially. So let's talk about a product. Differentiation of products. So, in terms of product, there's a lot of EdTech ways in order to show differentiation of product. The problem with technology is there's a really great quote about a lot of teachers think of technology in terms of nouns like the stuff instead of verbs, what you want them to do with it. That's the problem. Is we have to have high quality pedagogy and high impact instructional strategies in order for that technology product to be beneficial. Again, you've heard me say this, and I'll say this for a long, long time until somebody changes my mind, that technology doesn't matter. It's what you do with it that matters. And so I have been working on this for close to 15 years and working especially with principals in not only my own district but other districts, and helping them understand what to look for in the classroom and how teachers can plan to better use technology. There's 5 different things that really have high impact. One is who's using the technology. Is it teacher-centered, is it student-centered, or is it both? A lot of people will say, hey, technology should be in the hands of the student. Not every time. Maybe the teacher needs to model how to do something. Maybe the use of technology by the student isn't effective. I have walked into hundreds of classrooms where every student was on a device and there was 0 learning going on, but there was high engagement. So just because you see everything happening doesn't mean that learning is really happening. If you took the technology away, would the learning be different? Technology is truly transformational. If you take that technology away, that learning has to be so drastically different, they have to have the technology in order to make that happen. Just because a teacher wants to do a podcast doesn't make that learning transformational. Why are they doing it that way? What is the benefit of doing it that way? So if you took the technology away, would the learning be different? What opportunities for choice, both in hardware and software? So choice, 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 choice. What opportunities do students have to collaborate with and through, and what opportunities do students have to create new products or new knowledge? And that's what we're talking about. Highly effective technology, classrooms, choice is key. Choice is key. So teachers who create products where they want every student to have, they want them to create a PowerPoint. It has to have 13 slides, and it has to be this color, and you have to have this many bullets, and you have to have this many sources. That's a recipe. Recipes don't belong in classrooms, they belong in kitchens. Avoid recipe learning. That, creating a lesson like that, creating a product like that is easy on the teacher, not the student. That's easy for the teacher to grade. It doesn't help the student demonstrate anything. Unless I'm in a PowerPoint design class and I'm learning how to use those features. But still, even then, I can have choice. So choice is key in avoiding recipe learning. So to differentiating products, we're going to look at how the different ways that students can do choice, and we're going to do it in 3 minutes. If you want to talk to, I have written tons of blog posts and I can talk to you at hours on this. But think about like a common activity. I can remember doing this as a kid. I was in 4th grade. Teacher said, "Hey, pick a country in the world and create a brochure that you want people to come to." You have to tell the per capita, what's the population, where is it, what's the climate, all these things. You're now the expert on this country. Every product was the same. It looked the same. You couldn't tell them apart. Now we have the benefit of technology that allows us to, maybe I'm going to create an interview with someone from that country. I'm going to go on Skype and I'm going to try to Skype someone or another kid from that country. Or I'm going to create a music video, or whatever it is. Being able to differentiate that way of thinking differently about how is technology truly transformational that allows students to do things they couldn't do before is really what the aim here is. I call these traditional technology tools. Blogs have been around for 20 years. Wikis have been around for 20 years. These are traditional tools. They're still great. These are still great ways for students to be able to show what they know. And you can do it in lots of different ways, through lots of different blog platforms and SoundClouds and live binders and ThingLinks, lots of different ways. Those are traditional tools. What we want to start thinking about is non-traditional tools. Sway, which is what we've been using. Wonderful, awesome, amazing tool. I can import what I already have done. I can pull immediately. I can just, hey, I want to search for this, and boom, it's already in there. I can do so much with it.
And I do want to put in there, Sway allows you to record your voice. And that's missing all over the place. I've yet to see, unless you app smash things, a place where you can record your voice right on the slide.
So multimodal ways of being able to create a presentation that truly captures what students know. We already talked about Flipgrid. You think we like Flipgrid? The new video storytelling tools, like this is the next generation movie maker, is incredibly amazing, the things that you can do. Available right now on PCs running Windows 10, but automatically create videos from images, like, hey, I just dropped my images in, boom, got a video, done. I've got music on it, done. Transitions, everything, done. So now we're not having to waste the time of stressing over how long does this need to be. I can just pop it in there, boom, it's done. Automatically adding special effects. Two that I think are undervalued but could be very beneficial to this type of differentiation of product, and plus we need to be using these in the classroom, are Instagram and Snapchat. These are tools that for a long time a lot of schools have avoided because of they don't want the stigma going along because they see how kids are using them, but it's primarily the reason we've avoided using them that they have the stigma attached to them. And so creating Snapchat or Instagram stories of what was a day in the life like a pioneer or George Washington or a scientist or whatever it is, short 10-second video, audio, pictures, filter, all kinds of things to allow kids to be creative in multiple platforms, but doing it at where they are at their level and tools using that they're already using. The key is that every student deserves a great teacher by chance, not by chance, but by design. That every student deserves a great teacher by design, and that's where this differentiation comes in. So to review, we covered these 4 areas of differentiation.
In 50 minutes.
In 50 minutes, and I did that technology section wicked fast. Assessment, content, process, product. You can't do everything. The key here is to go back, and if you're going to start talking about differentiation, you can't do everything. No teacher anywhere can differentiate for every kid in every different way every day in the classroom. It's not possible. Figuring out what high quality, high impact teachers do is they figure out, where are my kids today, where do I want to take them, and where do they need to be tomorrow, and what is gonna be the best differentiation. Are you showing everybody my tweets?
No, I messed up. I was trying
You're
to get
fine.
the link up, sorry.
Of doing that. So it's important to take it in chunks.
Trying to get the Sway link up here. Oh, here we go. So we have the Sway link for you.
I can't make it bigger.
That's
Oh, because
okay.
it goes. Well, here, if you want to come be old-fashioned and take a picture,
Without
take a
this
picture, because this is the link right here to this Sway. But we're going to tweet it out here in about 10 minutes. So if you want to be cool, high-tech, 21st century, you can follow one of us on Twitter, or you can check out our tweets, and we'll tweet this link out for everybody. So my 3 things really quickly, because I know those people really want to get in here. 3 things. 1, make sure you take time to reflect on your learning today. 2, make sure you do something innovative while you're here. Go to something that stretches your thinking. And 3, make sure you share what you've learned with somebody else who's not here. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for saying. Have a great day.